All right, it's 5 minutes past 4. Welcome to 99.3 Nigeria Info. Countdown 2019, 63 days to the general elections. And we're discussing all the big and significant issues on the road to the 2019 elections. You can follow the program on Twitter and tweet at Countdown 2019NG and at Rotimi Sankore, as well as Nigeria Info FM at Ideas Radio NG. Today we'll be speaking with at least two candidates.
Well, it was to be three, and we should explain why, because we have said they are coming, and so far one is late, so we have to explain.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. One for the position of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is the one, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is the one may not make it, and other two for the governorship seat of Lagos State. We're live on visual radio, so you can watch this program on Nigeria Info FM on Facebook. You can also send your questions or comments to our WhatsApp line, which is 0809 597 5805. So, welcome Ayobe and Rotimi Sankore.
Oh, thank you, Aho. And I'm feeling particularly bereft in our ideas segment because I was looking forward to asking the presidential candidate of Kowa Party about where is the ideas segment where's the ideas component in his presidential campaign. Particularly
Ideas for those joining
means integrity, democracy, ethics and accountability, which are so important if we want to move beyond personalities to issues and issue-based campaigning. But unfortunately, it looks as if I'm going to be bereft. I may just let you know, Rotimi, that this week I was actually at the Electoral Institute of the Independent National Electoral Commission. And I mention it because the topic that we discussed was one that has come up in relation to some of our previous programs, and that was vote buying. And, what it is, why it's happening, what is being done to prevent it. And it was an interesting exchange that I had at the Electoral Institute with some of the of the participants and those who are particularly concerned with electoral reform. But I think that what the purpose of it is for us to see about to be able to test the integrity of the election that's coming, and as a result of what I some of the discussions that I had, it does seem to me that INEC is still very much in the sphere where it's almost as if they've got their heads down, focusing, with blinkers on, focusing on there, and not understanding how some of the things that are coming out in the public space are playing to the Nigerian public and their suspicions about the lack of integrity, or the possible lack of integrity, particularly when it comes in the process, particularly when it comes to the failure or the refusal of the president to assent to the electoral bill.
And the amended Electoral Act.
Yeah, the amendment to it's a bill which is to amend the existing Electoral Act. And all the suspicions about whether or not what this does to the issue of the card readers. Now, the INEC people were very clear that they're definitely using card readers, and that nobody should be worried that card readers are not going to be used, and that, quite frankly, if they had been waiting for this bill to become law before they started planning to use card readers, then they wouldn't be getting very far. But the argument on the other side is that it's not whether or not INEC is prepared to use card readers. It's a question of whether or not those card readers, or the evidence that they provide, will be admissible in a court of law should it come to a situation where the election result is being challenged. And you may remember when we had Clement Nwankwo of the situation, one of the things that he said that could help build confidence in the process was if civil society and even political party agents could have access to the platform of INEC, so that they could see as the
results are coming in.
the returns, and even the I think the rate of usage at which the card readers are accrediting voters and so on. So there are so many issues because at the moment the integrity of the elections is not just about people wanting to be sure that their votes count and are counted, but also about the acceptability of the result. Because while nobody is going to say that Nigerians should lie down calmly and take it if they feel that they're being cheated, sometimes the perception of cheating can overtake the actuality of cheating, and that's why I felt, in my view, INEC is a little bit behind the curve on some of these issues.
Well, I think the really most important thing for INEC is to be out in front with the communication, because anytime misinformation starts and it concerns INEC or refers to INEC or suggests that INEC may be colluding, and INEC doesn't respond immediately and explain why or how. For instance, they've done a good job with respect to whether IDPs that are outside Nigeria,
which makes them not IDPs.
Which makes them not IDPs, will be allowed to vote. And although it is something that you and I will understand very quickly, if that kind of rumor starts getting around that IDPs in Niger and Chad are going to vote and it's going to be counted, then a whole lot of tension will start. INEC has done very well to be out in front.
This is one of the few cases, I would say, where INEC has responded.
That's why I'm giving it as an example, to say that if they respond like this to everything and explain everything properly, then there will be more confidence in the system. Because we have even seen a situation in one of the state elections where, in fact, it is not something INEC can control. You know, it's the legislation that says that if anything happens
more than a certain distance,
that's from the polling yes, that INEC has nothing to do with it. And then INEC explained it. Our reporter explained what INEC said, and a whole lot of people that had no confidence in INEC were like, no, your reporter can't be speaking for INEC. And we said, no, he's just reporting the law as explained by INEC. So it shows that there are a lot of people that are so suspicious of INEC that even just explaining what INEC said is their responsibility or is not their responsibility attracts hostility. Talk less of if it is actually INEC's responsibility.
So I can actually attest to that, because it's almost as though, and I certainly met a lot of people at the round table that I went to. A lot of people were who have been working on electoral reform. When they try to explain that these reforms are actually taking place. In fact, that's really why you have to start doing vote buying, because you now have to have actual people who with valid voters' cards. To vote. And they were explaining, they say that whenever they say anything to suggest that the election is going to be a credible election, then they get attacked because they're perceived as being on the side of the ruling party. But so I do think that perception management is important, because I mean, you saw a lot of people saying that, well, if IDPs outside the country can vote, then why can't the diaspora? I mean, and we know that diaspora voting is something that our National Assembly has not yet undertaken. They haven't yet come up with the necessary constitutional amendment to allow that. But you can tell certainly from the activity on social media how very interested a lot of people outside the country are.
Some African countries do it. So why can't Nigeria? It's a question of identification and registration.
Well, I should say that when we were having we'd had our June 12, 1993 election. The following year, in April 1994, I was designated the assistant polling officer for the South African elections. And because they knew that they had a lot of people who were in exile, they made arrangements for them to vote at the UNDP offices here in Lagos. And people were coming from, they made arrangements to actually bring them from different parts of the country to vote.
In fact, I remember when apartheid just ended, and they were wondering, would South Africans outside South Africa be able, and they were like, but we're on exile, we didn't decide to go. We were chased out, so we have to be able to vote. And that was one of the best examples of how countries can quickly...
I think that in a case like ours, it shouldn't depend on only those who are forced out.
No, I'm just saying that in the case of South Africa, they had to make that arrangement because a lot of people that had stake in the process had been forced out by the apartheid regime. And when apartheid ended, the transition was not complete. A lot of the apparatus was still in the hand of the apartheid forces. But even then, South Africans outside, and almost all black, so almost all were going to vote for the ANC.
And incidentally, one of the features of that election that we conducted for the South African diaspora here in Nigeria was that when you came for, for accreditation and voting, you were asked, what is your province? So, I mean, of course, some of them were so eager, they said ANC. But nonetheless, the point was that, because I noticed that in INEC's guidelines, they say that if you're an IDP outside your particular constituency, you may only be able to vote in the presidential election, whereas the South Africans made, you could say, my state is X state, and they would then allow you to vote in the gubernatorial, Senate, well, it was provincial elections, but they allowed you to vote in the elections for that particular province. So,
okay, we have to make an announcement, just so that everyone knows what is happening. So, we have two candidates that are running late.
Yes, one of them is Shina
Fagbemi, the presidential candidate of
COA Party.
Yes, the other is Babatunde Gbadamosi of the ADP.
Action Democratic Party.
Okay, so the next scheduled candidate is the APC governorship candidate, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. So if the others turn up when he's supposed to go on, they have to wait.
Well, as I said,
because it's their fault for not turning up on time.
Absolutely.
Yes, so it's important to explain this because in a situation where you have two governorship candidates from Lagos supposed to go on at the same time and supposed to go on the same day.
Since you're not organizing gubernatorial
debates. Yes, you know, if one is late, so if Gbadamosi, in fact, he's already late.
Yes, no, that's...
Yeah, so it's almost certain that we can't take him before
Sanwo-Olu. We were hoping to take Mr. Fagbemi.
Well, Mr. Fagbemi's plane just landed.
Oh, he's not going
to so I don't know when he's going to turn up. I hear that Mr. Gbadamosi is stuck in traffic somewhere nearby. Well, you know, so if people turn up, they have to wait, okay? So... if you are listening,
all I can say is that for the ideas segment, I'm afraid that we are not. We just encroach on your space for these 15 minutes. So I feel particularly deprived that I wasn't able to put some of these, and particularly even for Mr. Gbadamosi, because I looked at his manifesto, and it was very interesting to see that he had plans for what he was going to do in various different.
Well, we certainly hope that all candidates have plans. A candidate without a plan.
Well, I mean, when you want to talk about issues and issue-based campaigning, although, as I said, ideas, integrity, ethics, accountability are part of it, there's also the actual policies and programs that you want to pursue, which may also be part of the issues. So, well, I have to bow out as regards Ideas Radio, or Ideas Radio has to bow out. I may stay and poke nose a little bit, but I'll leave you to it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Very grateful.
Please don't forget to check us out on Ideas Radio or at Ideas Radio www.ideasradio.ng. You can also check our website out, which is www.ideasradio.ng. And me, you can find me pontificating here and there at Nijama.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ayobe. So